Hello and good day. Our topic for today is obligations with a period. Let's now proceed to the second kind of obligations under the Civil Code of the Philippines. Recall that there are different kinds of obligations under the Civil Code of the Philippines, and they are first, pure and conditional obligations, second, obligations with a period, third, alternative and facultative obligations, fourth, joint and solidary obligations, fifth, divisible and indivisible obligations, and sixth, obligation with a penal clause. In this video, I'm going to discuss the second kind of obligations under the Civil Code of the Philippines at ito yung obligations with a period. First, let's define obligation with a period. An obligation with a period is an obligation whose demandability or extinguishment is subjected to the expiration of the term which must necessarily come. In other words, there is a day certain when the obligation will arise or cease. Ibig sabihin, ito yung obligation na may term. At yung term na yon ay darating in the future. Take note, hindi kailangang may date palagi. Ang importante, future and certain. It relates to the future and at the same time certain. Siguradong mangyayari siya in the future. For example, D is obliged to give his laptop to C on December 31, 2021. As you can see, meron siyang date. That is December 31, 2021. So this is an obligation with a period. On December 31, 2021, pwede nang mag-demand si C kay D na ibigay na ni D yung laptop. Another example, on January 1, 2021, D allowed C to use his laptop until December 31, 2021. In this example, there is again a date. That is December 31, 2021. So this is an obligation with a period. On December 31, 2021, matatapos na yung obligation ni D na ipahiram yung laptop kay C. On that day, kailangan nang ibalik ni C yung laptop kay D. Sinabi ko kanina na hindi kailangan na may date palagi. Ang importante, future and certain. That's why you need to understand the concept of day certain. A day certain is that which must necessarily come, although it may not be known when. This is Article 1193 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines. Ibig sabihin, darating siya in the future, pero hindi natin alam kung kailan. I will give you an example. The death of a person. All of us will die. Of course, everyone will die. Darating ang kamatayan, yun nga lang, hindi natin alam kung kailan. Yan yung ibig sabihin ng day certain. It must necessarily come, although it may not be known when. That's why if the obligation of D is to give C 5,000 pesos when B dies, this is an obligation with a period. Like what I said earlier, ang importante, future and certain. B will die in the future and it is certain that B will die. Siguradong mamamatay si B in the future. That is why this is an obligation with a period. At this point, let's differentiate period from condition. Ano nga ba yung differences ng period at condition? Ano nga ba ang kanilang pinagkaiba? A condition is an event that may or may not happen, while a period is an event that must necessarily come at a date known beforehand or at a time that cannot be determined. So, ang condition ay uncertain. Meaning to say, pwedeng mangyari at pwede rin na hindi mangyari. Pwedeng ma-fulfill yung condition at pwede rin na hindi ma-fulfill yung condition. Ang period naman ay certain. Kapag sinabing certain, sigurado na darating at mangyayari. A condition may refer to the future or to a past event unknown to the parties, while a period always refers to the future. Ang condition, pwedeng future or past, pero ang period, palaging future. Based on these two differences, we can say that a condition is a future and uncertain event, while a period is a future and certain event. So, ang palagi nyo lang tatandaan ay kapag condition, future at uncertain. Pero kapag period, future at certain. Next, a condition causes an obligation to arise or cease. Kapag nangyari yung condition o na-fulfill yung condition, it's either mag-a-arise yung obligation o matatapos yung obligation. Kapag hindi na-fulfill yung condition, then hindi mag-a-arise yung obligation or hindi matatapos yung obligation. On the other hand, a period merely fixes the time for the efficaciousness of an obligation. Since yung period naman ay certain, siguradong mangyayari siya in the future. Kapag dumating yung term or time na yon, it's either matatapos yung obligation or magkakaroon ng obligation. Next, a condition that depends upon the will of the debtor, which is suspensive, shall annul the obligation. This is Article 1182 of the New Civil Code of the Philippines. Na-discuss ko na to sa pure and conditional obligations. Recall na kapag ang condition ay potestative on the part of the debtor at yung condition ay suspensive, yung obligation ay hindi valid. On the other hand, a period that depends upon the will of the debtor authorizes the court to fix its duration. This is Article 1197, Paragraph 2 of the New Civil Code of the Philippines. So in case yung period ay nakadepende sa will ni debtor, the creditor may go to court and ask the court to fix its duration. Again, kapag yung period ay nakadepende sa will ni debtor, ang magiging remedy ni creditor ay pupunta siya sa korte and the creditor will ask the help of the court to fix the duration. Next, kinds of period. There are different kinds of period and they are, first, as to effect, may dalawa. The first is called ex-die and the second is called indiem. Ex-die is a period with a suspensive effect. Here, the obligation becomes demandable upon the lapse of the period. This is Article 1193 of the New Civil Code of the Philippines. Ex-die is a Latin term for from a certain day. In other words, this is suspensive period. So, ang ibig sabihin ng ex-die ay suspensive period. Kapag dumating yung term or day, mag-a-arise yung obligation. For example, X promised to give 5,000 pesos to Y on December 1, 2021. On December 1, 2021, mag-a-arise yung obligation. Kapag nag-demand si Y on December 1, 2021, kailangan nang ibigay ni X yung 5,000 pesos kay Y. On the other hand, indium is a period with resolutory effect. Here, the obligation is demandable at once but is extinguished upon the lapse of the period. This is Article 1193 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines. Indium is a Latin term for until a certain day. In other words, ito naman yung resolutory period. So, ang ibig sabihin ng indium ay resolutory period. Kapag dumating yung term or day, matatapos yung obligation. For example, X promised to give 100 pesos per day to Y until December 1, 2021. On December 1, 2021, matatapos yung obligation ni X na magbigay ng 100 pesos per day kay Y. Ang concept ng suspensive period at resolutory period ay pareho sa concept ng suspensive condition at resolutory condition. Yun nga lang, ang pinag-uusapan dito ay period. Next, as to source naman, there are three kinds of period. First, legal period. Second, voluntary period. And third, judicial period. Legal period is a period that is fixed by law. Voluntary period is a period that is fixed by the parties. And judicial period is a period that is fixed by the court. Again, the different kinds of period as to effect are ex-die and indium. And the different kinds of period as to source are legal period, voluntary period, and judicial period. What if yung obligation ay ganito? I will pay you my debt when my means permit me to do so. Babayaran ko yung utang ko sa iyo kapag meron na akong pambayad. Babayaran ko yung utang ko sa iyo kapag nakahanap na ako ng paraan para makapagbayad. Babayaran ko yung utang ko sa iyo kapag kaya ko nang magbayad. Is this an obligation with a period or conditional obligation? The answer is, this is an obligation with a period. Here, the remedy of the creditor is to ask the court to fix the period. This is Article 1180 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines, and this is also Article 1197 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines. So, ang gagawin ni creditor, pupunta siya sa court at yung court ang mag-fix ng period in order for him to be paid. Once the court has fixed the period, it may no longer change it as it becomes a part of the agreement by the parties. Next, when the court may fix the period. This is Article 1197 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines. Under Article 1197 of the new Civil Code of the Philippines, merong mga instances na kung saan pwedeng mag-fix ng period ang korte. There are some instances when the court may fix the period. First, the court may fix the period if the obligation does not fix a period, but from its nature and circumstances, it can be inferred that a period was intended. Meaning to say, walang naka-indicate na period dun sa agreement ng parties. Pero kung titignan natin at i-consider natin yung nature ng obligation at circumstances, merong intention ang parties na maglagay ng period. Kung mangyayari ito, merong right ang court na mag-fix ng period. For example, D is obliged to construct the mansion of C. However, no period was indicated in the agreement as to when D must complete the construction of the mansion. Here, it is clear that a period was intended since the construction of the mansion will take some time to complete. C may thus go to the court and ask it to fix the duration of the construction of the mansion. Aside from that, the court may also fix the period when the duration of the period depends upon the will of the debtor. For example, when my means permit me to do so. Ito yung example natin kanina, and this depends upon the will of the debtor. Other examples are little by little, as soon as I have the money, as soon as possible, and in partial payments. So, kung yung obligation ni debtor ay I will pay you my debt when my means permit me to do so, ang gagawin ni creditor ay pupunta siya sa court at yung korte ang mag-fix ng period. Again, merong right ang court na mag-fix ng period kung yung period ay nakadepende sa will ni debtor.